before I came to Constellation Work, I worked with Brain Gym, helping children who had ADD and emotional troubles and learning difficulties. And eventually I realized by working with children, and particularly with one child, was doing really good. The teachers even noticed he was very rambunctious and angry all the time, and the different child, what happened, what are you doing? And after 6 weeks, the child went back, lost everything that we had done. And so when I went, I asked the mother, what happened? And so the mother then told me that the father, every 6 weeks or so, has an anger fit, a rage fit, and the child gets beaten. And so I realized that the child is just kind of the carrier of what comes down from the parents. That's how I saw it then. I realized I could work with the child however much I wanted, but if the dad didn't work and work on his issue, the child is not going to be helped. So I realized I don't have tools to work with adults. So I put out this prayer. Constellation Work showed up out of nowhere. And a friend invited me. It was just an introduction evening, and that evening blew me away. The person, the person had an issue, personal issue, how we usually would look at something, and then my teacher, he became my teacher, Heinz Stark, he set up this elaborate family situation, and people collapsed on the floor, and then he brought another generation, in, and they collapsed to the floor, and he went back several generations, and total strangers were pulled in to represent these family members. And somehow, by some miraculous force or whatever, these people kept collapsing on the floor. They couldn't stand up anymore. And, eventually he intervened and created a shift, and eventually everyone was able to stand up, and everyone was able to hug, and everyone was able to see each other. And a whole transformation happened within an hour and a half of one simple issue that we think is personal ended up being a huge web of intergenerational problem. And I thought, I have to learn this. Just for me, I didn't even think about doing this professionally. I could never see myself do this, but I knew that was so clear. I have to study this for myself to understand how I function, how I work, how I fit into my family system. So that's how I came to Constellation Work. It was very clear that the work said, you learn me, and I learned it. I took several years. I stopped Brain Gym then, and I really focused on learning Constellation Work. So Constellation Work is really a system where you learn the basis of, how family members interact and what creates like black holes, so to say, that pull them future generations in. But then each family is different. You have to go in completely empty, not knowing anything, and see what will show up. And so, that was a process of learning to really become empty and trusting. If you have a group of 30 people and then you know nothing what's going to show up, and will you be able to deal with it? It's quite a frightening undertaking. And so, I had to really face a lot of those fears of entering into nothingness space to really allow the greater knowing from the field to show what was necessary for each person, for the person to be healed, but also the whole family system to be healed. So it's a very different way of working on an issue that we have in regular life now. Very profound shifts, really happen often very quickly and run very deeply. People who had maybe anger forever suddenly are no more angry, because it wasn't their anger, you see. They carried somebody else's anger.